it can be easy to overstate the intellectual life. And what I mean by that is we're not just wholly intellectual beings. We have emotions, we have desires, we have attitudes about different things. And so we don't want to limit how we feel enriched with other people, or even in terms of how we feel enriched with God, to one particular dimension, namely the intellect, because otherwise we can compartmentalize our spiritual lives. Strength is a good thing to have. Having knowledge is a good thing to have. Having strength is a good thing to have. But of course, you can misuse good things. So, like, if I use my strength to harm someone, I am not using strength as it should be used. Mm-hmm. Likewise, if I consider myself knowledgeable and I use it either to make someone feel dumb or stupid, or if I don't even do that directly, but like say I listen to them but they don't sound as articulate as I do, I'm in my mind thinking, I'm not going to go to them to be edified, because there's not much they can contribute to me, because I need intellectually minded people to edify me. Right. And so, like, once again, making that a very one-dimensional way of viewing who can edify me within the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, whether it be strength, whether it be wits, whether it be even athletic abilities, like I was telling you earlier, like say you had a professional ultimate frisbee player that came out one Sunday afternoon and just played ultimate frisbee with a bunch of guys. None of them were professionals, but this guy is. What if he were to evaluate their performance by how he competes? Mm-hmm. Well, he probably won't feel very satisfied, because he's like, oh, these guys they're not bad, but they're not like, I don't feel like I'm really getting much out of this sport because they're not really competing. So every ability that you have is inherently good, but it can be used to sever your connection with other people or to make them feel inferior to you, and that's never good.
Extroverted feeling, which is our decision-making function, more developed, more comfortable for us, and so we just happen to have like a knack for making decisions quickly due to that leading function.
For example, today when we were walking here, we were faced with crossing the street at a red light, and you ran, and I'm like, wait. And I'm like, because your car is coming.
If I waited, I would have got hit by a car.
But I waited, and I didn't get hit by a car. So it was just like, same result, different methods.
That's true. That is very true.
Which brings me to my point that INFJs usually aren't very good with making quick decisions. Like, you never want to put an INFJ in a position where they have to make a really quick decision at like an opportune time, because that puts stress on them, and they want to take their time to figure out what's going to logically happen next, and we do a lot of future pacing, so we like to anticipate what could happen and what's going in the long-term effects of whatever we choose. So to put us in a position where we have to make a quick decision is not always the easiest, and it's very challenging, because that's not our knack. That's not what we do first. They would be more inclined to take a step back and think, okay, how is this going to end up? Like, what is the logical process of what will most likely happen here before I even make my first move? So I guess they see everything as more of a chess game. They're thinking 10 steps ahead, like, okay, if I do this, that's going to happen. And if I do that, that's fine, because then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen. Okay, I'll make this move now. So he's always been the more like adventurous, like Tommy Pickles. So I don't know. I've always thought of Tommy Pickles when I thought of him. So he's always been the type that jumps into things more, and I've always been the type of like, I don't know if that's a good idea. So my analogy is, you have an ENFJ and an INFJ about to cross a bridge over a very treacherous ravine, right? And it's very dangerous down there. There's even piranhas down there. And the bridge is not very safe. Like, it's very rickety. There's missing boards and stuff like that. And the ENFJ jumps right onto the bridge. And as they're going onto the bridge, they can see what's ahead of them immediately. And they're like, oh, dang, if I step there, I'm going to fall. So they just kind of hopscotch it, and they make their way across as they go along. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, I'm going to go here. All right, now I'm good. Whereas the INFJ is still on the other side, and you're like,
That is totally me.
Okay, so I'm going to go here, 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 here. And then I'm going to have to jump, and then really jump again, and then I'll be there. And then they go. So it's basically the same process. However, one is a little bit more detached in the external reality of things, whereas the other one just jumps right in and says, you know what, I'm going for it, and I'll make the best of it as I go along.
Oh
man. Okay, so I was scorned a lot when I was younger. Like I used to give a lot to people. I used to try and be giving. I used to try and be giving to people when I was younger, but then I realized that was being taken advantage of, and I knew no other way to remedy that than to just turn it off completely. So that's when I became a lot more honest, and I thought it was more blunt, and I was very critical of other people, and I just said what I thought was the truth, and that ended up spurring on arguments a lot. Now, I've always gotten like a cheap thrill out of arguments only because I wanted to prove that I was right, and that's not always what's necessary. So I would always say what I thought was the truth, but it would turn people off, and maybe I didn't say it right, or maybe I didn't translate it right the first time, so then we would get into an argument even though we would pretty much be talking about the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've always been feeling, though. Like, I've always been a feeling type. It's just that I wasn't readily showing that to people. Like, I would feel for somebody, and I would just think it in my head because I didn't want people to think I was soft. Like, I had a lot of times growing up where it was just like people viewed me as too sensitive, so I was like, oh, word, heard you. I'm not seeing that anymore. And then from then on, I would try my best not to show emotion as emotive as I can be. I was like, I'm not going to be vulnerable with this type of person anymore because that can be taken advantage of, or they don't value or appreciate it. So why even waste my time with that? So logically, I was like, okay, if that doesn't work, then why would I continue to hurt myself in the way? Or like give 100 to somebody who's giving me maybe 0.5 on a good day. For me, it comes out in affecting the culture, man. Like I've in my drawings, like as abstract as I do get sometimes, you'll rarely ever find that I'm not drawing people or not trying to reflect people in a positive light or reflect an injustice in society, or I'm not trying to be positive, or I'm not trying. It's all about interacting with people, I guess, in the sense that yes, I'm thinking about one specific scenario or interaction that reflects society as a whole, but it's also just to be able to show off, like, hey guys, look at this for a second, think about this for a second. And I think that's usually what I'm trying to do, even when I'm not using words, which I love to do, but sometimes it's cliche, but picture is worth 1,000 words, man, maybe more. Body language is very big to me. Like, I can't fully, like, one reason I don't like talking on the phone, for example, is that I can't see somebody's body language. Like, it angers me that I can't see the way, like, somebody's expressing themselves. And I know full well that communication, like 90% of it is based on body language, like how you're interacting with the person physically. So, like, I get angered, like, why can't I see what you're doing? Like, that's how I'm able to connect with people.
That's interesting, since your SE is last, so I would think that wouldn't really be like much of a problem. But it still serves your NI, I guess.
Exactly. So, like, even though we're not fueled by extroverted sensing, we're still very sensory in the sense that we like to indulge in it because it's like our 3-year-old, so we're just giving it something. Meanwhile, it's also giving us more information as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, why would you study for a test the night before? That doesn't make sense. I mean, it's smart to start looking at stuff the same day you learn it.
And you were able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you ain't gotta sit down and put in 2 hours, but if you look at it a little bit every day, that cut down the time you have to study when it actually comes time to prepare for the test.
Yeah.
When it comes to making decisions for me, I usually try to see how they hold up to, my moral code, my beliefs and values. And most of the times when I'm making decisions, when I'm just, thinking about anything in general, I'm always trying to relate it back to if that represents me as a person, if that's who I am.
So is that something that you
really consciously ask yourself, like, every time you're about to make a decision?
Every time, like, let's see, think of an example. So, let's say, like, I'm thinking about, I don't know, let's say someone gets me mad, right?
Which happens often.
Yeah. And I get, let's say I'm thinking about retaliating, and I know that there's some things I could say that, like, will bury this person, right? And then I have to stop myself and think, I'm like, look, is this how I want people to see me? Is this how, like, is this what I want people to think of me? Like, does this represent who I am as a person and what I really believe in? Because, you know, we all get mad from time to time, but, like, regardless of that, I wouldn't want someone feeling that way because I wouldn't want me to feel that way. And even if someone's angered me and they deserve whatever, I can lash out at them. Should I really do it? It's all about finding a medium to express your emotions.
Yeah.
As opposed to just outwardly saying, like, how you feel. You find some kind of art form. Maybe it's drawing, maybe it's writing, whatever it is. Maybe it's a sport, whatever, but, you know.
What got you to become a nutritionist? Well, like, how'd you get into nutrition?
Oh, so my grandmother, she died from pancreatic cancer, and my grandfather, he died from cancer also. And so I wanted to learn more about, like, the symptoms of cancer and, like, how it, you know, how the process starts. And so once I started researching and reading, I started understanding that, like, with those type of diseases like cancer, pancreatic cancer, or diabetes or anything like that, I found out a lot of my mom, she has diabetes, and, you know, a lot of my family members, they have diabetes and they are, like, dying. And so the main reason was because of the foods that we're intaking or that we're consuming. And so I want to be a type of nutritionist where I'm, like, preventing people from, you know, taking that step of eating, you know, the foods that we don't need to be consuming, but eating the right foods. Like, you can have apples, pasta, you know, bread, stuff like that, like whole grain foods, and, you know, vegetables, and making sure you're taking your multivitamins. Those are the type of stuff that I'm very, very, like, intuitive about, you know.
Yeah.
You can ask him.
Yeah.
I'm always talking about that.
Yeah,
I'm always talking about
all of his
nutrition.
food.
I measure my food. I measure the amount of calories that I take in. That's just me. I do it. I will never go without a job.
That is true. That is true.
I will make some sort of income to basically live for myself without asking my parents for anything.
Yeah.
You know, I will, like, basically be broke before I ask my parents for anything. And so that's that third function of us, like, our TE, like, we go get it. Like, we're go-getters.
Yeah.
We, like, are doing what we need to do. Like, we have a checklist. I basically have a checklist. I don't write it out, but I basically have a checklist in my mind. Like, okay, I gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. Like, as soon as I get up, I go straight to the kitchen because that's my mandatory thing every morning. I go to the kitchen, get some food in my system, go take a shower. After I take a shower, go get some more food in my system. And then from there, I go to class or I go to the gym. You know what I'm saying? Either or. And I have that, you know, in my mind, like, okay, I have this set out. This is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to be. You know, I don't even have a planner. And usually people, they use planners to basically plan everything. I basically have it in my mind, set in my mind, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. And then that's how I go pretty much. Reading and journaling is going to develop that second function. I guarantee you, in a matter of time, you're going to notice within yourself that you're changing. Your perspective on life is going to change once you develop that second function. And that's basically reading, writing, taking the time out within yourself. Turn off TVs, turn off electronics, turn off everything, and just basically, even if you gotta just, you know, don't call anybody, don't talk to anybody, don't say anything to anybody for at least an hour or maybe two to 5 minutes, you know, or 30 minutes. Take that time to basically meditate within yourself and try to understand, you know, your life and understand what your mind is basically thinking, you know, and understanding what other people are thinking, you know, because if you don't develop that, then you're gonna suffer pretty much the whole time, pretty much your whole life. You're gonna suffer in your relationships. You're gonna suffer within your friendships. You're gonna suffer within your job. like all of those things, because you have to put those things in perspective when you go to your job, when you're in your relationships, when you're in your friendships, because you're not gonna have any friends if you're thinking about yourself all the time. You're not gonna have any friends. I mean, you're not gonna have a relationship, a good relationship at that, if you're thinking about yourself all the time.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a good job if you're only thinking about what I'm gonna do today. You know, I'm gonna go up in here and I'm gonna do this because I only care about myself. No, you gonna get fired. Because what? The job is basically for you, is designed for you to help others, not you helping yourself.
These days it gets a lot more muddled, simply because that's my learning process in terms of being able to find a consensus and being like, okay, I'm not sure about where this is going, but I'll just go with the flow and see. Because that's, honestly, I've learned that from, I guess, podcasts, where you have that one person who's like, has an objective, not objective, but like they're very, they come to conclusions very quickly, and they're able to defend those conclusions all the way through. And by the end of whatever conversation they're having, everybody has learned something.
Yeah.
So through that, I guess I've sort of adopted that same practice of, okay, I'm not that type of person where I jump to conclusions, but in order to learn something, I'm going to have to seem opinionated so that we may all learn something from this experience. So like, even if I know that the other person may be opinionated, I still want them to think about a different perspective, even if it's not really mine.
Like, I know, and you know, we can always like edit stuff out, but I know like back in high school, you were kind of popular, at least from what I saw, for drawing penises all over your
I'm very
papers and stuff.
No, I was always very interested in sex, and like, I don't know, like I feel like there's sexual energy in a lot of the things that we do. But like the body in and of itself, I just find beautiful, and I find like that it shows everything that we've been through. It shows like these are our only homes. That's how I see it. Like this is my only true home. And probably because I have like that nomadic heart, you know, like oh, I'll be here and that. So like this is one thing that is stable or that I can control. This is the only thing that I can control. So that there's like this relationship with it is kind of like separate from myself sometimes, and that doesn't always come across, you know, in conventional audiences, because like most of the time we don't identify with our bodies as separate from our actual souls or actual selves.
Interesting.
I feel like, I'm just speaking like personally, probably the reason why an SE Dom probably would have picked up the thing better, like if Mulan was ESFP or ESTP, is because they also have a higher extroverted thinking function to really like drive them to get it done. As ISFP, even though we have all those capabilities, number one, we're introverts, so you won't really see it unless we decide to show you, which is rare. Number two, we don't have as much of a drive as ESFPs and ESTPs do. So like, unless we really, really care about something, we're not gonna like do it. We have to like really care, and then we'll put our heart into it, and then you'll see the fruits of that labor. You won't, most of the time, you won't really see the process. We're not just gonna show you, oh, here's this thing that I've been working on for the past 5 minutes. How do you, it's like, no, we want to be in like our introverted state, processing things and analyzing everything first, and then like present that to everybody else. Because of our FI and our NI, well, really all three. So the FI that helps me really get in tune with like my emotions and understanding why I feel the way I feel. And then a healthy ISFP will also be really developed in their extroverted sensing to like check in with the real world and see how things are like playing out, and how ultimately that can inspire us in some type of like artistic way. Even if you're like a nurse or something, but like you do painting at nightclubs on the weekend, something to just keep like, you know, your juices flowing, so that way, you know, you don't have to rely on your 10-year-old introverted intuition understanding motives behind why I do what I do helps me to understand other people as well. And that's why I would say ISFPs are one of the best types in giving advice, because if, like I said, if you're healthy, you really understand as a person, like personally, why you do the things you do, and you see how realistic it is or is not in the outside world. And then you have a good hold on your introvert intuition to put yourself in the other person's shoes, but also be like, in your own mind, okay, like, when this happened, this led me here, and when it happened to my friend, this led her here, and this person is kind of like my friend, so this is probably how this is going to play out.
I do find it easy to cut relationships, like easily. Like, for example, like when I leave school, I have all my friends that are leaving because we're all graduating at the same time. But for me, for some people, it's like a big emotional scene. I'm like, well, it was cool when it lasted. Like, it's not that big a deal.
I know other ESTPs who literally say the same.
Yeah, like
it's funny.
Like it's not like I'm not hurt that you're leaving me, but I'm not about like gonna sit here and cry over it, because it's just not who I am. It's not I don't have that feeling that I need to just overwhelm and break down in somebody's arms because you're leaving me for the rest of your life.
Right.
Which obviously, like, I'll probably see some of these guys, and I probably won't see some of them. Like, but this is a phase of my life, really. Yeah. And like I said, when we go way back to that SE thing, like being present, I think that has a huge deal with like that kind of stuff, and not worrying about like, well, I'm never going to, like right now we're just hanging out, you know what I mean? And tomorrow if we're not hanging out, tomorrow we're not hanging out. So I don't find feelings per se, I don't find them as hard to get rid of. It's every relationship that you go through is a step closer to the person that you're going to marry. Yeah. And you have to think about it like that. As my personality, I'm not great at thinking into the future, and so whatever. So it's just like, for me, once it's over, yeah. But it's not, my feelings, I can feel detached very quickly. Even like, just go all the way back to like when I started school. My mom just had like the worst time me leaving. I'm like, you just need to calm down. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's just like the way it is. Like, I didn't have a problem leaving home, like at all. Like, I didn't shed one tear. I was excited because I was at school. Not that my parents weren't there, because I guess I was sad that they weren't there, but I didn't get upset over it. I was like, this is just a chapter in my life, and I'm never going to live in my house again, so what is the point of being upset about it? And I don't know if that counts as detachment or not, but that's just like an example that I think is a pretty big deal. Like, just relationships aside, like just that relationship with your parents, if you have a good relationship with your parents, which thank God I do, like have a great relationship with my mom and dad and my sister. But that's just what it is. Like, I wasn't hurt by me leaving, like what my mom seemed like that one time.
Got you.
People have like stupid dreams that they think these are gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna win the lotto. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, play if you want. Somebody has to win. It's probably not gonna be you. I'm a dreamer. I really am. I love to dream big, but I dream within my skill set, because that's what I do. I know what I'm good at, and I don't mean to be overconfident, because I don't want you guys to think I'm a terrible person. But you can if you want to. I don't care. I really don't. Like, there's a lot of people on Earth that just think I'm the worst person on Earth, and I really don't care what they think. But
I need to get like him.
I'm a dreamer, but I dream within my skill set. I'm dreaming big for this youth program that I'm about to not start. They have a youth, but about to build, so they can continue to grow. But I know what I can and cannot do. So I'm not setting high expectations for myself that I can't reach. That I see that some people do, and when they do that, it really ticks me off, because I'm like, you're never going to get there. Wow. Like, just be like have a little common sense. Now, especially like if I talk about this with somebody who is a really big dreamer, and I really do care about, and I really like have like some kind of sympathy for, and they're really big. Yeah, like you. Like for me, like if you dream really, really big, that's great, and I need somebody who makes me push my limits, because I dream very, very big, but within my skill set and in my limits. I have to push myself to get to those marks, but I never have to go outside my comfort zone, because I know exactly what I'm good at. I know how to be good at it. I know what to do, and I know how to get there.
Wow.
But I always seem to stop at that point. So when I see other people do like get past that point where I know what their skill set is, because reading people, like I'm good at reading people. I can see people and I can go, okay, you're good at this, this, and this, which makes me a democratic leader, because I just put people in their place because I want them to do this, this, and this, because I'm like, okay, you're good at this, here you go. But that's just like kind of what I see. People dream really big, and I know what their skill set is from having a conversation, 20-minute conversation. I could tell you what you're best at, because I can see it and I read people that way. I think it's just because I think it's because I have a lot of like experience with people and stuff like that. But then I see the people that are like, okay, you can't accomplish that, and I'm like, you can't do that without this, 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 and this, and you need to get this, 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 and this, this, or you're never going to make it to where you need to go. And I know that sounds terrible, because I'm like shutting people down all the time, but the reason why I like giving advice to those people is because I can bring them back to earth. I can go, logically speaking, by yourself, you can do this. But with this person and this person, you can actually get to here. But then you have to need this person and this person, or this kind of person, to get to where you want to go. So I think that's kind of like why I like leading and I like doing that kind of stuff, is because I see people for what they are, and I don't see people for what they dream that they could be.
Wow.
Because I think that's some of the issues that even like in the world that we have, that people dream like they're going to do this, and they're going to do it by themselves, and they can't get there by themselves.
Wow.
And to me, that's just super stupid. Like, you just, if you need help, just ask for help. Call me. I don't care. I'll be there. Like, I'm there to help. I just not going to help you fall apart. And then the people that dream really big, I watch them crash and burn. I'm like, you should have stayed within your skill set.
The other thing is that, like, when we talk about digging deep into an issue, what we're basically talking about is asking, like, why questions and moving up a ladder of abstraction. The ladder of abstraction starts at the bottom with something like a cow. Very concrete, very measurable, very recordable. It's verifiable. Yeah, exactly. And as you move up the ladder, things get more and more abstract, more and more connected, but not immediately measurable. So you can move from a cow to, let's say, the category of farm animals, and from farm animals to the category of implements on a farm, things used for a farm's business. Then from that you can move to something like the things that the farm produces, and as you move up you get to things like economics and systems that have lots of interrelated parts and are very abstract concepts,
and money
and currency, money,
and it's like,
and then
wait, how
value.
are cows and currency related?
Yeah, or cows and like the meaning of life, but like that relates to what is valuable, what does this mean. So you go from something very concrete, and like on this level of the ladder, or sometimes it's better to put it as like a timeline, so it's not seen as like this is better than the ones down here. So with the ladder of abstraction, usually sensors are more comfortable in the concrete area of that, talking about concrete and measurable and verifiable things, because that's where they process most of their information. Intuitives are often more comfortable, or at the very least longing to talk about the more abstract things, ideas, concepts, possibilities for the future, because that's where they process their information, and also because they often get less chance to talk about that unless they're around other intuitives a lot, because the majority of the world ends up being sensors. So like all the things that in their mind that they're interested in, sometimes those things, they don't get to express them because they don't have enough intuitives around them who are interested enough in listening, or they don't know how to express themselves in a way that's not confusing to people who aren't usually thinking about those same things.
Yeah.
Vision casting most often involves breaking a thing down to its core elements and then asking how do we reach those, or why are we reaching those, And that's basically what NI does all the time. It takes tons of disparate data, and I've heard it compared to like a black hole. It sucks it all in down to one singular point. That's why you'll hear these visionary types often have very clear ideas of what they want to do in the future, because they've taken all the disparate data about things they enjoy and what they want to accomplish in the world and what they're capable of and good at, and they've brought it all together and narrowed it down to a clear vision statement. We all have like this sense that like we're not perfect. This comes out in everyone, really, and it's what you see in the human emotions of guilt and shame and regret, where we know that there's something we should have done and we didn't do it. Denzel and I are both Christians. This is one of the things that has convinced me of Christianity, and it's an argument from the moral law within humans, which basically just says that like we all have a standard of how we should behave, not just what feels good or what would be advisable for us, but how we ought to behave. And none of us keep that standard. We break our own standard all the time, and that's why we have the existence of this emotional states of guilt and shame and regret, because there's a standard that we hold ourselves to that we didn't meet. Now that's really strange, because all other natural phenomenons in this sense are related in nature to observing what actually happens. So this isn't like we're looking at humans and saying humans behave this way, so our feeling that we should behave this way is natural. We don't behave that way. It's like something external to us is imposing on us the sense that you should behave this way. Some people have argued that that comes from society or the way we were raised, and that can happen, yes. The issue with that is that it doesn't answer the question of why it exists in the first place, because we talk not just about like what would be advisable or what feels good, but what we should do. And you can shuffle around I would be advised to, or it would benefit me to, or this feels good, or it would be a good idea to do this, and never come to the phrase I ought to do this. That's a moral statement. So even if that moral statement is coming from nations, we have no grounds on that argument to say the Nazis ought not to have slaughtered so many people, because that would be just their nation's version of what's right.
Wow.
Especially considering that the morality of humans has differed across culture, but it has often come down to a few central tenets that remain the same. And if you want to know more about that, you can read the book The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis, who actually did research into ancient civilizations and modern ones, and how they all have common themes of like not taking what's not yours and preserving human life and respecting others' property, and tons of like similarities like that. So anyway, those I have found as compelling evidences that this moral thing inside of us, what we would call a conscience, is being given to us by something outside of ourselves, or was injected into us by something outside of ourselves that adheres to that pattern. And that would be the moral source in God.